1 Corinthians 13 is the most read passage at weddings in the English-speaking world. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. Every couple has heard it. Most assume it is describing romantic love, the kind that brings two people to an altar and keeps them together for a lifetime. But the Greek word Paul uses throughout this passage is not the Greek word for romantic love. It is not the word for friendship. It is not the word for family affection. Paul deliberately chose a word that the Greek-speaking world had used far less than the others, a word he effectively reloaded with entirely new weight. The word is agape, and it does not mean what most people standing at that altar think it means. Ancient Greek had at least 4 distinct words, where English uses only one. Eros described romantic and physical love, the kind that draws two people toward each other. Philia described the love of friendship, the warmth between people who genuinely enjoy each other's company. Storge described family affection, the bond between parents and children, between siblings who grew up in the same house. And agape, the rarest of the 4 in classical Greek, described a love that was chosen rather than felt, a love that moved toward its object regardless of whether that object was attractive, reciprocal, or deserving. When Paul sits down to write 1 Corinthians 13, he has all 4 words available. He picks agape. Every single time the word love appears in that passage, patient, kind, enduring, hopeful, it is agape, not eros, not philia. Paul is not describing what happens when you feel strongly about someone. He is describing something much more demanding and, ultimately, much more durable. The single most important observation about 1 Corinthians 13 is grammatical. Look at how Paul actually describes agape. Love suffers long. Love is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. These are not emotions. They are behaviors, verbs and adjectives of action, not feeling. Paul does not say love feels warm. He says love suffers long. The Greek makrothymē means to hold back anger under sustained provocation over a long period. He says love is kind. The Greek krestou means to actively treat someone with usefulness and goodness. He says love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. These are postures of the will, not states of the heart. This is the core insight that English translation tends to soften. Agape in Paul is not primarily something you feel. It is something you do. It is a sustained orientation of the will toward another person's good, whether the feeling is present or not, whether they deserve it or not. Augustine translated agape into Latin as caritas, and caritas became one of the organizing concepts of Western theology. For Augustine, caritas is the love that gives without calculating a return. It is the opposite of cupiditous, the love that uses its object for its own satisfaction. Caritas moves outward. Cupiditous curls back on itself. The entire spiritual life, for Augustine, is the slow conversion of cupiditous into caritas. C.S. Lewis, drawing on this tradition in The 4 Loves, called agape gift love, the love that creates value in its object rather than simply responding to value already found there. God's love, Lewis argued, is the supreme example. It does not love us because we are lovable. It loves us and thereby makes us lovable. Aquinas goes further. He calls caritas a kind of friendship, amicitia, between the soul and God, not servitude, not obligation. Friendship, defined as willing the good of the other for the other's sake. And this friendship, when it is real, cannot be contained. The person who has received agape finds it moving through them toward others. So what does 1 Corinthians 13 actually ask of the person who takes it seriously? It asks for something harder than strong emotion, and something more achievable. It does not say, feel more warmly toward the people who are difficult to love. It says, suffer long, be kind, do not keep a record of wrongs. These are actions. They can be chosen on the days the feeling is absent. In fact, that is precisely when they count. This is why Paul ends the chapter where he ends it. Now abide faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Not because love is the most pleasant, because it is the most permanent. Faith will one day be sight. Hope will one day be possession. But agape, chosen, willed, action-oriented, does not end because it does not depend on circumstances to sustain it. Every person who has ever stood at an altar and heard these words was hearing a description of something they cannot manufacture but can choose. Day after day, action after action, whether or not the feeling arrives. Paul is saying that choosing is what love actually is.